Hey all, my name is Prashant Kumar, or PK, and I'm an MCAT tutor at Shemmassian Academic Consulting. Today, we're going to be tackling an MCAT CARS passage. You should be taking roughly 10 minutes on this passage, but today we're going to be going more in depth so you can see exactly what's going on in my head as I tackle this section. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and comment exactly what types of videos you're looking forward to next as we tackle this one. Let's get it. Alright, great. So I've gone ahead and put the passage on the left and the questions we're going through on the right. So feel free to take a moment, pause the video, and come back to us whenever you're ready. I'll go ahead and zoom in on the passage so you guys can get a better look at what's going on. Alright, so there's paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4, paragraph 5, paragraph 6, and then we'll go through the questions as well. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5, and question 6. Alright, so take a moment, pause the video, and come back to us whenever you're ready. If not, let's get right into talking strategy. For me, I like to maintain the same strategy going through any of these CARS passages. The reason for this section is one of the most daunting, right? If you get a passage you don't like to read or a boring passage in a sense, that can throw you off your timing, throw you off your pace or the rest of the section, all of that. So having a strategy that I can come back to really grounds me. Regardless of whether the passage is super easy or super hard, I know I have the skills to take it on. So what does that look like? For me, I like to read a paragraph, write a quick 3 to 5 word summary, sort of like a thesis, then go on to the next paragraph, do the same, and on and on and on. Why do I do this? It provides accountability and make sure I understand exactly what's going on in that paragraph before going on to the next. And this is really helpful because I don't have to waste time rereading an entire passage if I don't understand what's going on. Rather, I can reread a paragraph if I'm unable to write that quick 3 to 5 word summary. So that's my strategy. Hopefully that helps you as you sort of go through these sections to understand the big picture. And I mentioned this big picture because CARS is really important with that. You need to understand the tone of the author, you need to understand what the main idea is, and sort of the context of what the author is talking about. If you understand those 3 things, and you practice by trying to learn these 3 things when you're doing practice passages or practice tests, I really think you can get some of the questions just from the tone or the thesis of the author, right? If you know what's the big picture going on, you'll be golden on test day. All right, with that, let's get right into the first paragraph. It was about the beginning of September 1664 that I heard in ordinary discourse that the plague was returned again in Holland. It had been very violent there, and particularly at Amsterdam and Rotterdam. In the year 1663, what they say, it was brought, some said from Italy, others from the Levant, among some goods which were brought home by their Turkey fleet. Others said it was from Cyprus. It seems that the government had a true account of it, and several councils were held about their ways to prevent its coming over. But all was kept very private. People began to forget it was a thing we were very little concerned in. Till the latter end of November and the beginning of December 1664, when the 2 men said to be Frenchmen died of the plague at the upper end of the Drury Lane. Alright, so the question I always ask myself is, what's going on? And so this is where I want you to think like, this is how I want a summary, right? If I had to summarize this, I say, plague returns, right? No concern to concern, right? Something quick, 3 to 5 words, arrows, symbols, abbreviation, all of that is wonderful, right? As long as you can understand it at the end of the day, no one else matters. It doesn't matter if it's neat, messy, as long as it makes sense to you, if it's coded, whatever. So that's my quick summary, so I have an understanding of what's going on. The family, they were endeavored to conceal it as much as possible, but has gotten some vent in the discourse of the neighborhood. The secretaries of state got knowledge of it, concerning themselves to inquire about it, in order to be of a certain of the truth. 2 physicians and a surgeon were ordered to go to the house and make inspection. This they did, and finding evident tokens of the sickness upon both the bodies that were dead, they gave their opinions publicly that they died of the plague. Alright, so again, what's happening? So, secret, investigated, and then died of plague, right? That's what's happening again. So it's like a summary statement of there's a secret that's coming out to light, and these guys died of the plague. All right, next paragraph. The people showed a great concern at this and began to be alarmed all over the town, and the more because in the last week of December 1664, another man died in the same house, and of the same distemper. And then we were easy again for about 6 weeks, when none having died with any marks of infection, it was said the distemper was gone. But after that, another died in another house, but in the same parish, in the same manner. It began to be suspected that the plague was among the people at that end of the town, though they had taken care to keep it as much from the knowledge of the public as possible. All right, so again, what's happening? Here we have rest turning into plague, right? So there's like a little break in between. And then I'd say this is isolated to end of town, right? That's how they say it. So the plague is coming around. People are worried because it's all in one area, one end of town. All right, next paragraph. I lived midway between Aldgate Church and Whitechapel Bars on the north side of the street. As the distemper had not reached that side of the city, our neighborhood continued very easy. But at the other end of the town, their consternation was very great. The richest sort of people, especially the nobility and gentry from the west part of the city, thronged out of town with their families and servants in an unusual manner. Indeed, nothing was to be seen but wagons and carts, with goods, women, servants, and children, etc. Coaches filled with people of the better sort and horsemen attending them, and all hurrying away. Then empty wagons and carts appeared, and spare horses with servants, who it was apparent, were turning or sent from the countries to fetch more people. All right, so what is happening, right? Again, it's the same idea of people trying to be escaping. So I'm going to write people escape. But what type of people are escaping from this? Wealthy people are escaping. And so they're horses, buggies, exodus, right? So this is like an imagery picture of like people trying to leave with their families and servants and all of that. Next paragraph. This was a very terrible and melancholy thing to see, and as it was a sight which I could not but look on from morning to night, it filled me with very serious thoughts of the misery that was coming upon the city and the unhappy condition of those that would be left in it. I now began to consider with myself concerning my own case and how I should dispose of myself. And that is to say, whether I should resolve to stay in London or shut up my house and flee, as many of my neighbors did. I have set this particularly down so fully because I know not, but it may be of moment to those who come after me, if they come to be brought to the same distress. Therefore, I desire this account may pass with them, rather for a direction to themselves to act by then a history of my actings, seeing it may not be of one farthing value to them to note what became of me. All right, so again, what's the question? What's happening? So here we have the author's discourse, right? Author's discourse to leave or stay, right? And so big picture understanding, there's other stuff happening in this paragraph, but no details, right? We're focusing on big picture. Finally, let's go to the last paragraph. I had two important things before me. One was carrying on my business and shop, which was considerable, and in which was embarked all my effects in the world. The other was the preservation of my life in so dismal a calamity, as I saw apparently was coming upon the whole city. I was a single man, but I had a family of servants whom I kept at my business. I had a house, shop, and warehouses filled with goods. To leave them had been to hazard the loss, not only of my trade, but of my goods, and indeed of all I had in the world. All right, so here, author's shop and what left behind kind of thing, right? So now we've done this, we have a basic understanding of what's going on in this passage, right? A plague is coming, a plague is causing people to turn into chaos, people to leave the city, and now the author is deciding whether or not the city is where he's going to stay or he's going to leave with the wealthier people, right? And so that's exactly how I want you to tackle this type of section, is we have a main thesis, we have a main sort of understanding of why the author is writing this, right? The author is in this situation with them. He's not looking at it from like a narrator's perspective only. He is living in this situation. And so with that, we can go right into the questions with this tone, this thesis idea. And let's start with question number 1. Based on paragraph 3, which of the following words most nearly means distemper? Is it A, disposition, B, cause, C, disease, or D, resentment? All right, so we know exactly where to look right away. It says paragraph 3, and we're looking for distemper, okay? And so what does that mean? We're going paragraph 1, 2, 3, and we're looking for the word distemper. And we see it right here, distemper, and right here. So let's read the sentence out loud and think about what is it talking about, okay? And the more, because in the last week in December 1664, another man died in the same house, and of the same distemper. And then we were easy again for about 6 weeks, when none having died with any marks of infection. It was said the distemper was gone. All right, so the way I like to think about this is think, and of the same blank, it was said that the blank was gone, right? Put blanks there and think about what you would put into fill there. So if I was to go off the context of this, I would say the disease was gone, right? You X this out and you think about what word is there, and I'm thinking, oh, disease makes sense right there, because a disease is gone. That's the context that we hear the phrase used. But let's just check the other words to see if it makes sense. All right, and of the same disposition, it was said the disposition was gone. That doesn't sound right, especially in that second situation. And of the same cause, it was said the cause was gone. That also sounds better than disposition, but we're thinking about like what is gone, not the cause is gone. We don't know what the cause is. The disease is gone. Okay, so we can cross out B and pick C for now, resentment. And of the same resentment, it was said the resentment was gone. Resentment is not talking about the infection at the same rate, right? We're talking about an infection, so we can cross out D, and we're 1 for 1. We're ready to go on to the next question. But that's like the context I want you to use for like those fill in the blank, what does this word mean type of thing. That's the context I want you to use. All right, question number 2. From the passage, one can reasonably infer that A, the city lacked a middle class, B, the author did not have the means to leave town, C, the plague was new to Europe, D, the government sought to prevent mass hysteria. All right, so right away, we should be thinking infer, right? We're thinking one can reasonably infer. So we're trying to take information given in the passage and extend it one direction. And we're looking at what's a reasonable inference. So A, the city lacked a middle class. That doesn't really make sense, right? Sure, it talks about the poorer class and the wealthier class, but there's no indication that there is no middle class. And I think that's an unreasonable sort of inference. B, the author did not have the means to leave town. The author is discussing pretty outright that he has like a shop, he can leave, it would just be gut-wrenching to leave. So we can eliminate B as well. C, the plague was new to Europe. So we have evidence on the contrary of this, right? That first paragraph where it's talking about other parts of Europe, other parts of sort of that continent, we can eliminate C for that reason. It wasn't new, it was there, and it had somehow made its way back. So we're going to look at D, the government sought to prevent mass hysteria. Exactly, right? In the paragraph, we see that the government is keeping it hush-hush, right? They're not talking about it. They even say the family tried to conceal it as much as possible. Secretaries of State got it. And so it was all kept very private. So we're hearing the government had the true account of it, and the several councils were held way to keep it off. But that's the idea, right? The government sought to prevent mass hysteria, and that's why they were keeping it away. So I think that's the best inference we can draw. And so with that, we're on to question number 3. Which of the following statements, if true, most challenges the author's assumption? Is it A, those who fled the city were more likely to die from the plague? B, the plague did not kill everyone who got it? C, the plague was not brought from Italy? Or D, international commerce was negatively affected by the plague? All right, so here we have most, like, if true, most challenges type of thing. So we're trying to think in our mind, if we made this sentence true, right, would that destroy the arguments that's being said? Would that destroy what's happening here? Like, would the passage make sense if we put this piece of information right at that beginning? That's how I like to tackle this type of question. So let's go let's start with A. Those who fled the city were more likely to die from the plague. That actually is a good answer, right? If this were true, then we would be saying, oh, it wouldn't make sense for the author to want to flee the city or other people to want to flee the city, right? The wealthy are the ones fleeing the city to escape the plague, and the plague is affecting the less wealthy population. And so A is looking like a good answer right now. Let's look at B. The plague did not kill anyone who got it. That's not really affecting it, right? It might say like, oh, it's less deadly, but the context is still the same. People are dying from the plague, and people are trying to flee from the plague. So we can eliminate B. C, the plague was not brought from Italy. I don't think that really affects the passage that much, right? If you put that in, sure, you'd be like, oh, the first paragraph doesn't make sense, but the context of the rest of the paragraph, or the rest of the passage, would make sense. So we can eliminate C. International commerce was negatively affected by the plague. Wouldn't challenge anything, right? This is just a statement that would be made that the plague is negative for international commerce. And so we can eliminate D. And so the author's assumption is most challenged by A. Those who fled the city were most likely to die from the plague. And the author is suggesting that the wealthy are the ones that are fleeing, all of that. So with that, we are 3 for 3. On to question number 4. All right, question 4. The passage offers no information about the author's A, marital status, B, upbringing, C, occupation, or D, motivation. All right, so right away, we're going to have to note that this is like a find information to justify this, right? We're looking for the passage suggesting that there is no evidence behind one of these things, right? So we're looking for what? We're looking for evidence of these things in the passage. And so maybe you can remember this off the top of your head just from reading, right? I'd say maybe D, motivations. We remember the authors had motivations of staying, motivations of leaving. So I think right away we can eliminate D. And we know what the author did, right? He had a shop, and so we can eliminate C. And so maybe you're stuck between marital status and upbringing. And this is a great situation where we're going to have to go back to that passage. No one's going to remember these details off the top because they're not big details. But let's go back to these paragraphs where we're talking about the author and what the author is doing. So in the final paragraph, the other was my preservation of life. In so dismal a calamity as I saw, apparently was coming upon the whole city. I was a single man. So if we look in the paragraph, it's kind of subtle in there. But we see that word single man, and we have a piece of evidence to suggest that marital status is brought up. And so upbringing is not brought up. And so if we read that in the first time and somehow in my mind, perfect. But in this case, a little bit harder, so we're going to go back to the passage and look for it. All right, on to question number 5. What does the passage suggest about the nobility of the city? Is it A, they did not care about their servants? B, they had the resources to leave town? C, they were well connected with the local government? D, they were more fearful about the plague than others? All right, so we mentioned this in question 3, and we should be able to think what the right answer is from that, right? A reasonable understanding of the tone of this passage and the thesis says that the wealthier people were able to leave the city, whereas the poorer people, while they were in chaos and wanted to leave, were unable to. And so right away, B is looking like the best answer, right? Question 5A, they did not care about their servants. That's not true. Some of them were taking their servants with them, right? Goods, women, servants, children, etc. Coaches filled with the people of the better sort and horsemen attending them, all hurrying away. So we would eliminate A right away. They did not care about their servants. Doesn't make sense. They were well connected with the local government. Well, we don't really have information about whether or not they were linked in with the local government. And just because the local government was talked about, there's no evidence supporting that they were interlinked. So we can eliminate C. D, they were more fearful about the plague than others. That's not true, right? We talked about this. Everyone's fearing, everyone's crazy, but this one side of town doesn't have the means to escape while the other does. And so we can eliminate D. And so with that, we're 5 for 5. On to the last question. Let's go, team. All right. This passage would most likely to be found in A, history book, B, scholarly journal, C, autobiography, or D, newspaper article. So this is the exact type of question where you're looking for the tone and the thesis of the passage, right? We don't have to go back to the passage at all if we understand, oh, the author is writing this situation. Okay, so he's a writer. but he is living in the situation, right? He is making the decision for himself. And so right away, I would pick C because the author is the narrator, right? The author is telling a story about himself, which is standard for an autobiography, not a newspaper article. He's not writing for others people's sake, not a scholarly journal. This isn't anything sort of scientifically academic. You could argue a history book, but a history book wouldn't really have this much personal details or personal decision making, so we'll eliminate E. And so with that, we're 6 or 6, and I want to really, really emphasize, we did not go back to the passage too often, simply because we were able to think about it in our head. What was the tone? What was the structure? What were like the big picture ideas? And we were able to eliminate a lot of answer choices. But don't be afraid to go back if you need to. I'm just saying this is a great way to save time on this already very, very challenging section. But kudos for you for getting it done. Congrats. All right, great work, team. We crushed another CARS passage, one of the most daunting sections on the test, and you did it. You crushed it. So kudos for you for getting it done. If you like this video, give us a like down below and subscribe to our channel, and comment exactly what types of videos you're looking forward to next. And definitely check out our 528 strategy series on the channel. Super helpful tips and strategies that are going more in depth of each of these sections that'll get you ready for test day. And finally, click the link in our bio to sign up for the MCAT question of the day so you don't miss out on any test prep before your test day. Happy studying, and let's get it.